Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. I went to record this and I thought it was going to be a crazy long episode, but I forgot that I broke the news about Aloha. Honestly, it feels like it's been months already since it happened. Like that's like my sense of time with things is just like completely in the wrong place. But most of those comments were people leaving condolences for Aloha. So thank you to all of you who left those condolences. It's not always easy reading them. In fact, I muted my Twitter thread where I announced it because I was just like, I don't want to read it anymore. But thank you all the same. I obviously still appreciate the motion, I suppose. Speaking of Twitter, two announcements. Number one, Twitter screwed up again, and I got like 1,000, like almost 2,000 followers on my Blue Sky that I like haven't used at all. So I'm going to start including my Blue Sky in the description of all the videos. I'm going to try to remember to be more active. I'm not really good at it because right now, especially with Aloha's thing, I just have been very inactive on socials. I've been like kind of gradually easing back into it. But I am going to just try my best to start using that, get back into the rhythm of things like as more time passes after Aloha. So it'll be more normal because I've been using Threads, Instagram, Twitter, and I want to, I got to throw Blue Sky into the mix. Like I said, I think I've said it before, and somebody made a recommendation. I don't remember when. I think it was 2 weekly Q&As ago of something that is decent at like kind of getting you like formatting things for multiple social platforms. I don't think it can push them through because Twitter's API is too expensive. I don't think a tool like that would be paying for Twitter's API. But yeah, I got to take a look because I would really like one thing that posts the same thing on all platforms. That's easier said than done. But that's going to be a thing. So Mr. Happy 1227 on Blue Sky. I mean, I got to have it, right? I'm not going to not have it. And then what if suddenly it is the thing that takes, it's one of those situations, I stayed away from the like 8 billion other ones that came out in the last couple of years, or at least made a count. So name doesn't get taken. This one I'll try to actually use. The other thing, I do have a Magic Spoon sponsored video for this weekly Q&A, maybe for the next one as well. It depends on how this next week actually goes for me because I have a few obligations with them and a few other obligations that need to be taken care of. So that's going to play before the question and answer starts. There'll be the link in the description as there normally is whenever I do the Magic Spoon sponsor. And I'm grateful to them for always looking at it. This was a hard month for me to hit quota because there wasn't a lot to talk about and I wasn't in the mood to make content. But I wanted to make sure that I got them their videos out. So that's where that is. So those are the two announcements. I'm going to get into the Q&A quick, and then I have a few things I need to do before I have raid tonight. Going back to doing the low item level stuff. So like low item level Eden and then just some, old ultimates. Obviously those aren't low item level, but you know what I mean. So I want to make sure I get this all done. So with that, let's go into the Magic Spoon ad and then into the Q&A. Oh, also thanks to everyone on Patreon for sponsoring. I almost forgot. I'm going to edit this part in real quick before the Magic Spoon plays. So thanks to people over on Patreon for supporting as well. You guys are awesome. All right, Magic Spoon ad. Before we get started, though, Magic Spoon is back to sponsor another video on the channel. I've been eating their cereal and treat bars for well over a year at this point, so it's always good to have them sponsoring a video. Now, as much as I enjoy cooking a nice meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner, sometimes I just need to get what my body needs ASAP, especially right after a workout. That's when I reach for Magic Spoon. As a high-protein product, I can get some good calories in quick, whether that's with a few handfuls of their cereal, because I'm an animal and I eat it right out of the box, or just one of their treat bars, which I'll admit I eat far too many of, but I can't help it. They taste so good. If you'd like to try Magic Spoon while also supporting the channel, then click the link below to get some today. Build your own custom box of cereal with tons of available flavors, or throw some treat bars in there. Trust me, you're gonna be glad you got the treat bars. Best of all, use my link and discount code Mr. Happy to get $5 off of your box. You can also buy it at your local grocery store or even on Amazon. And if you don't like it, Magic Spoon has a 100% happiness guarantee. Let them know if you don't like it and they'll refund you, no questions asked. So click the link below or scan the QR code on the screen and use code Mr. Happy to get $5 off, or go to magicspoon.com/Mr. Happy to save $5 on your order. It even works in Canada and the UK. Thanks again to Magic Spoon for sponsoring this video, and now let's get to it. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello, Haps. Hi. I have a couple of questions today. Sure. First off, I'm curious how you feel about the way Relic Grinds are designed in the game. I'm not a fan personally because I don't feel like it fulfills the fantasy of a Relic weapon. When I hear Relic, I'm picturing parsing old maps for clues, delving into unexplored ruins, and defeating ancient foes and taking treasured weapons or guarding, etc. Actually, I feel it's more like, well, keep in mind, our relic weapons are basically designated as weapons with such intense etherical compounds that they either replicate ancient weapons or essentially the ancient weapon is resurrected in some capacity. I mean, the animal weapon is us essentially creating a soul from scratch. And it's not called a relic, it's called the anima weapon. In fact, it's also worth remembering the community calls them relics because that's kind of what they are, but that's really a holdover term from 11. The Zodiac weapon, anima weapon, resistance weapon, Manderville, while there are some mysterious bits about them, we call them relic. The game has formal names for each and every one of them. So this seems more like a matter of perspective. Now, as for the way of obtaining them, that depends on which one. I actually look back at the old checklists of relic and anima, and I think about the advantages those came with at the time versus how annoying they were to do. And I think there are some pros and cons to that way. My favorite way is definitely the Eureka way. I think having the dedicated zone that has the content built around the idea of making these weapons, I think that works better in the grand scheme of things. And I think the middle ground of the resistance weapon is also about equatable to that. I think because it's only a kind of middle ground for the resistance weapon where some of the steps can be done outside or have to be done outside even. And, but you still need to progress through Bozia itself. It like doesn't quite do the whole thing correctly. And I don't think there's a way of doing that to everyone's satisfaction. None of these are to everyone's satisfactions, but I think that kind of half attempt is not good enough. Like if you're gonna make it so you can or can't do exploration content, then you might as well, go all the way with it and make it so if somebody really doesn't want to do exploration content, they don't have to do it at all. Not they have to progress the story, but then do the steps out. That doesn't make any sense to me. So that's why I think Eureka, even though one could argue Eureka they may not like as much, I think it's the purity of that progression makes it more digestible, more streamlined, without kind of taking out the effort that goes into actually making it. I think they could keep experimenting. I just hope we never have another Manderville style weapon. Second, I have a question about side quests. Recently decided to clear all the Dawn Trail side quests. Surprised how good they are. Yeah, most side quests since Heaven's Ward have pretty decent backstories to them. And subsequently, really old side story quests have randomly been expanded upon in future side quests, like ones from A Realm Reborn that don't have a whole lot going on. Occasionally, those end up feeding into other things. I remember one of the earliest examples of that is meeting Godbert and doing a quest with Godbert, then to find out later he's Hildebrand's father. So all of a sudden, the Godbert quest makes way more sense if it's for the Meteor Survivor ring. So, my instincts are very few people do them. No data back it up. I'd say that's accurate. Even if people do them, a lot of people do it to clear the exclamation marks off the map and not necessarily pay attention to the quest. But I have a feeling more people do them and pay attention than both you and I would think, because a lot more people into Final Fantasy XIV care about those smaller details than the people who are loudest, like people like me, like someone who doesn't dive into every single detail as deep as that, who's far more public. But there's so many people that don't engage with content and content creation for 14 that play the game, that do care and do interact with those things. So I think you're right. Less people probably do them than should if you care about the world and the lore, but more people still probably do them than we think. So there's I bet there's some middle ground, and you're never really going to fully incentivize people to do these unless they want to, unless you hide unlocks behind every single one of them. And then even then, that just makes the people who don't really want to do side quests just skip through them to get to the unlock that they want on the other end. You just have to want to do them. You can't make people want to care about something. If it has a carrot at the end of the stick, it can go either way. And it's just, if they care, they care. If they don't, they don't. I wouldn't try to make people care more about side quests. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello, Mr. Happy. Hi, hope you're doing fine and sorry for your loss. Thank you. Final Fantasy unrelated question. Will you adopt another cat so Ivy can have some cat-like company? So it's funny, for years, I said that when Aloha passed, I'd probably get another cat very quickly because I would want to fill that void. And Ivy is sure as heck making it. She's in the tower right here. She's like actually in it. She is sure expressing that interest. With Aloha gone, Ivy essentially has lived on top of me. She's always jumping in my lap. She follows me. She never is entertained anywhere else, so she has to be with me all the time because she's very clingy. So she's making it seem like she wants it. I don't think it's a smart thing for me to do for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think it's good to just have a one cat household for a little bit, just so I can focus on other things in my life that, with two cats, a lot of time and attention goes into, owning two cats. My cats are not super independent. Ivy, like I said that, but even Aloha, while he doesn't like to admit it, he was never that independent. He was always, you guys could see it from the old footage, right? So I think having that little bit, like just letting the morning take place and letting kind of the anxiety of it just kind of like return back to normal is definitely more important. I also don't know if I want to live in the place that I live for more than another year. And if I'm going to adopt, I'd rather be in another location that I think I'll stay in longer, or at least another city that I think I'll stay in longer, instead of having to adopt and then move with the cat. So there's a handful of things. So I will probably be a one cat household for quite some time. And there's other things with Aloha that I'm considering at the moment. So Aloha's ashes, actually, I'm going to be getting them on the 28th. So we'll have like a little shrine. And I just want to, focus on moving past that first before I think about another cat. And then a Final Fantasy question. Do you think there can be a story where the Warrior Light will be turned against our current allies? I don't think there will ever be a point where the Warrior of Light's overall goal is at odds with the Scions, unless the Scions or any individual Scion has, like, I'm not going to say a full-blown Sylvanas moment or a Garrosh moment. That only makes sense to WoW players. But where they fundamentally have lost their composure and their ethics regarding what we're doing no longer align with what our goals have been. Now, that wouldn't make us the antagonist. That would mean we are at odds with former allies. I think that's the closest you'll ever get, is them taking a Scion and making them a villain. And honestly, if they were going to do any of them, it would be Ishtola. I feel like she's the first one who would consider doing some dumb shit, like regardless of what the rest of the world thinks is a good idea. And we would be at odds with her. And she's probably not someone we want to be at odds with. But yeah, I think that's the only way. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello, and an extra hello for anyone who missed one. Hopefully no one. Hello, and wishing you all the best. Thank you. My question is about Criterion Savage version of Alo Alo. I've seen people say this is on the difficulty level of Ultimate. It's not on the difficulty level of Ultimate. How would you rate it? I want to try and get the weapon claim, so I want to make sure it's something I can actually do. No, Criterion is very much, I would say it's like Savage, but you can't do as many things. With only 4 people, there's a lot of spread stack and a lot of focus on how you actually utilize the space of the arena. I will say that Alo Alo is a fantastic way for trialing somebody who wants to get into a Savage or Ultimate static. And if you're somebody who's still trying to improve your player skill and haven't done it, and you think there's an experience, you're like, oh, what's something I haven't experienced? I think Criterion as a whole is a good idea to do. And I think Alo Alo is one of the best ones. I actually, looking back, I used to say I think Alo Alo is the best one for doing that, largely because of the first boss. But looking back at the Sildian Subterrane, I think that's also, I think they're pretty much tied in terms of bosses that are, they feel unique and they test players in ways that are not entirely familiar, but are also not like insurmountable challenges. So no, I think you'll be fine. I think there are just a few things that Alo Alo Savage specifically has, such as the walls. How easy it is to walk into the wall on the final boss of Alo Alo Savage during one particular mechanic is so toxic. But I think that's like the worst of it. And then the final dartboard is also kind of tough. The first boss definitely takes some getting used to. The second boss is one of those bosses that is fundamentally very easy, but a lot of people struggle with the step-by-step process your brain needs to do, which also makes it an excellent practice encounter for people who struggle with that type of mechanic. So, no, it's definitely not ultimate level. The thing that's ultimate is you're not allowed to screw up or die a single time in Savage. That's where it gets its ultimate comparison. It's basically 20 to 22 minutes of perfect play. But just have to do, it's just 3 like 4.5 to 5 minute bosses and some trash in between. So as long as you know how they all function, it's not that big a deal. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi, hello, and much love. Thank you. And first time here. Welcome. During this raid tier, my static has had to PF barrier healers a few times. We always end up finding ones who seem adverse to actually using bears. Oh my God, I hate it. It happens so much in the PF. Dude, I specifically, when I PF healer, I PF scholar and sage just to give everyone, I'm like, I don't want to be like a orange, pink, gold. I don't even care about purple. If I'm going healer in the PF, I'm going to GCD every time I don't need to heal. And then before any raid wides, I'm putting a barrier up because I don't know if I can trust that the Bard press Troubadour or the tanks are have their reprisals all set or the melees even using feint or the casters even using app. I don't trust any of it. I pretend like none of them understand how those buttons work. And I put up a sucker or a sage shield. I do it every time. You are 100% correct. They do it. And do I think scholars need a reason to use barriers more? No, because even the sages don't do it. The sages will do it when there's downtime or when they're on the move and they're like, I guess not. Putting another dot up's not going to do anything. I don't have any phlegmas. I'm out of toxicons. Like they practically do it as a last resort. And they'll also do it to get the toxicons back, which might be what you're referring to. A sage is definitely less averse to getting their movement tool back later, so you may see more of them actually doing it. I don't think that matters. Scholars should just cast Sucker in the PF. Just accept you're not playing with Giga God gamers unless you join a Bars party and you know you don't need the mitigations for things. Otherwise, just assume that nobody's pressing the button. Like, please, I can't stand it. You don't need a shield for every AoE. They're completely right. But like, it's the PF, please just play your job. That's all I'm asking. Could an argument be made for more focus on healers healing rather than trying to heal as little as possible? They could, but the whole game, the reason why that hasn't happened is twofold. One, the whole game has to change. It can't be just one, it just can't be end game bosses. Cause then what you have is you have the way it is now, and then suddenly it changes for like a new piece of content. And it's just at odds. The game already doesn't do a fantastic job of easing you into the end game curve. That'll just make it worse. Second, actually, that kind of encapsulates both points I was trying to make. The second thing, if you change the entire rest of the game, the average skill level of healers needs to come up, and you'll see more people just stop playing or leave healer altogether than actually improve how well they play it. It's a sick reality that just comes with the way that the game is made. So I'm totally on board with more healing being required. I love heal checks, even as someone who doesn't like heal on content, or I'm sorry, I heal on content. I don't heal on prog. Sorry. I love it when something actually forces me to like do a decent amount of healing. And I love seeing the party being pushed to that as well, because that means mitigation checks are more important also. But that's number 3. There's too much mitigation in the game, which is why the scholars aren't using their barriers there either, because under ideal circumstances, you have so much mitigation with the gear that we have that the barriers matter for nothing at all anyway, most of the time. So that's another reason why you have that situation with them. But yeah, there's a lot that would need to change, and I'm unlikely to expect them to change it because too many elements of the game need to change to make it happen. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hola. Hola, condolences for aloha. Thank you. How you doing since then? I'm just going to answer the question. Simple question. I want to clear for as close to on patch as possible. Probably have to pause it to do it after the second tier. While I have the humility to acknowledge I'm not ready yet rotation wise, how will I know when I'm ready? Viper, by the way. Okay. I bet you're wrong. I have the humility to acknowledge I'm not ready rotation wise yet. Okay. You're jumping ahead to ultimate. Have you done Savage? Have you been doing Savage for the last several months on Viper? If the answer is yes, then I either have an answer or a couple questions. One, then you probably can do Ultimate. If you have been performing, okay, let me rephrase though. If you have been performing adequately and doing Savage and you're not that challenged by the current Savage tier, then you're probably fine. I will say this though. I would be mildly concerned if Viper, arguably one of the easiest jobs to play, if you think you have not improved, if you have not prepared yourself rotation-wise for Viper yet, I'm wondering what you fundamentally have not picked up about Viper in the time you've played. Like, that's the problem. There's so much background information. Like, for all I know, you could have never done like Savage, or you did Savage on something else, or you haven't played. Like, there's so much missing information. Because to say I'm not ready yet rotation wise on Viper, something just isn't clicking for me. Because you would have had to have like not done a lot of raiding on Viper. But if you are a Viper and you have done a bunch of raiding, I'm wondering how you would not feel adequately ready. Maybe that's the right way to put it. Like, what about your performance makes you think you are not ready yet rotation wise? Because quite frankly, rotation is important in Ultimate, but other than top, it's hardly the most important thing. Top was really the place where you really had to make sure you were squeezing out everything extra, because crit variance was very toxic, and I'm very concerned about that for Fru. I don't know. I have the humility knowledge I'm not ready at rotation wise. That baffles me. That if you can do the current tier and you've been doing it for months at this point, that you for some reason think you're inadequately prepared. I don't believe that. I don't believe you would be inadequately prepared unless you weren't rating at all. So I would need a follow-up on this, to be completely honest. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Howdy, Haps. Hi. Hope things are going and rolling along. That is how I would put it. Simple, almost joke question. Why do range DPS seem allergic to moving in for heals? For context, I just got my M3S clear. I've noticed in procs that the range kept dying because they never moved in for heals. Yeah, that's I'm okay out here. It's a mix of a couple of things. You see this a lot with people who only play a single role, and in range, that singular, if you only play a single role, then it prevents you from understanding how healers actually work. So a lot of times they're like, I'm going to go out to my spot for my mechanic. This is where I'll need to be later. It's where I am now. There's no point in me moving. But that spot is not always ideal for where the rest of the party actually is or can be in the center of the room. Now, while it's true they raised the range of a lot of healing related skills, they did not raise it for all of them. They raised it mostly for the OGCDs, and especially in PF. The quality of healer is not always consistent, meaning the healer stepping all the way into the middle of the room in order to hit you, or even like how consistently you're in range. Like sometimes healers will throw out a heal while everyone is spread, and the healer could be on the polar opposite side of the room. A GCD heal and even an OGCD heal is not always going to reach all the way to the other side of the room. I've seen healers miss each other. I've seen healers miss range. I've seen all sorts of things. And then they go to the middle of the room, but your HP from that missed heal is like, 20 to 25,000 less. And then you just get bad healing propagation, or even bad MIT propagation, or bad any sort of propagation. Or maybe the healer just assumes everyone will be fine because they're all maxed out, but you're actually missing. Like, I'm not saying you as in you're the one playing the Fizz range. I'm more like speaking to all Fizz ranged out there, or if that's a situation that anyone could find themselves in. And, they just they'll just die. I've seen it happen plenty of times where people just don't step in, or they don't respect the fact they have a paladin who can use wings. There's so much lack of understanding of what the jobs in your party actually do. And I see this a lot with people who one-trick roles and never experiment. They just don't think about what the other roles are doing in any given situation and why their death could potentially be their fault. And so for Fizz ranged, definitely a case of, I don't need to be in melee range, so I won't be. It's been a problem literally since the beginning of time. They have infinite movement, except in Heavensward, and they still can't seem to find themselves to be in range of everybody else. It also happens with buffs. Popping Troubadour as a Fizz range when you're way out and then missing people, instead of trying to press it while you're in the middle of the room and then stepping out. And yeah, I see stuff like it all the time. Or even just pressing their actual buffs, like their DPS buffs, while people are on the other side of the room. Yeah, I've seen it all. So it's always been a problem because they're just like, I don't need to be in melee range, so I'm going to be out in West Bumblefuck, and then this happens. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello, hi, howdy. Hello. Hope you're doing the best you can be. Thank you. Everyone's asking about you, which is very understandable. How's Ivy? Oh, I guess I kind of answered this already. I don't think she understands that Aloha's not here, but she understands there's only one other person at this point. So yeah, she's just been obsessed with me. She's either in this tower, on my lap, or actually in the tower itself. When I'm asleep, she basically sleeps on top of me. She's never in another room. When I get up to pee, she follows me. When I go into the kitchen, she follows me and lays outside the kitchen. She's been like that since I got her, but now she has no other outlet for it. And so Yeah, she's ultra clean. It's funny when my girlfriend is over, Ivy does the same thing to her because now she has two people to get attention from. So she'll like follow her around and she'll like bounce between her and I and like be like, oh, I want attention from you now. I want attention from you now. I want attention from you now. And so it's pretty funny to see how the different dynamic is when there is somebody else here and Ivy feels comfortable enough with them to try to get attention from them. Heck, even at the vet, she loves the vet now because it's an attention from another person. Her traits that were recessive before are now dominant. Like she meows very loud. She's never been a loud meower. She will yowl at me in the morning if I don't wake up. She'll go, ow, 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 ow. All morning. So yeah, that's really been the big thing. Is she's almost like taken on his role in the apartment, which is nuts to see after having her for 2 years and it never being that way. Hashtag last minute submission with Mr. Happy. Yeah, 6 hours ago. Good time. Good timing. Hey, Haps. Hi. Recently reaching Dynamis Sigma and top, getting closer and closer to that clear. Hoping to have it before Fru. Wishing you the best of luck. Yeah, once you're Sigma, the Sigmas were prog really slows. So hopefully you have enough time to get it done before Fru comes out. Before top, your group had gone back to the Omega raids to do them synced as possible to try and get an idea of how top would be. Did that work at all? Yes. One of the biggest things that you get is a baseline understanding of how a skill works. Now, that doesn't always mean that's how the skill will work, but being able to identify a mechanic you've seen before and at a glance understand how it works goes such a long way when it comes to prog. At that point, it becomes pattern recognition that really does the rest of the designation. But like, I'll give you a great example. At the end of Pantocrator is the where he does the and he shoots the lasers at the tanks and he does. Now that works entirely differently in O11S. In O11S, it's like the top two aggro targets get the tank buster, and then the three closest players get the beams. And so you have to alternate. Whereas in top, it's just, I think it's, what is it? The furthest players? Is it the furthest? No, I think it's the closest players get the tank buster, and then the other 6 players, the non-tanks, I guess, get the beams. Or it's not even that. I think it's just if you're not the closest at any point, I think you can technically get a beam. You just can't get a beam twice unless there's less than 8 people. So, yeah, like the rules of it are different, but we almost immediately figured out like, oh, you know, put the tanks here, put the party here, and do this. We did more movement than we had to, but the idea was still like completely the same, and it informed the rest of our decision. Hello World, other than the sniffing mechanic with the delayed bits, we understood how the tethers worked because of patch. We understood how the towers worked because of Hello World 2. And thus, within one pull of doing phase 3 of top, we spent like 45 minutes talking about it, but we basically figured out the entire phase until monitors. And then with monitors, it only took one run to see that it wasn't a tank buster, but we understood how it fundamentally worked in the normal one. We just took the tank rule out of it and said, oh, it's just 2 people on this side of the boss or on this side of any monitor. And again, 45 minutes to an hour later, trying to figure out like what actually makes sense in terms of positioning, and then, you know, going in and trying a few things. Yeah, it definitely informs, so you have to do less pulls overall. So I would definitely say it's worth it. I'm also going to say this. It feels refreshing to go back and do stuff you haven't done in a very long time, or if people in your group have never done those old fights before, it's a new experience for them, which is just reinvigorating before you actually go into Ultimate. Instead of just doing the same thing you've been weekly clearing for like 4 months already, going in and doing something that has a fresher feeling just revitalizes the soul and the interest in experiencing prog and raiding more, at least in my experience. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, Haps. Hi. Sorry about Aloha, and I hope you and Ivy are carrying on. That's about all we can do. From the Korean FanFest interviews, do you think the Legacy Ultimates are too easy now due to stuff like Pictomancer, Job Power Creep, and Food Pot Relic Weapons? If so, is this honestly a problem? So I'll say this. Too easy is relative because I don't think I think the biggest place where you see the quote too easy is like skipping a part of Twintanya, skipping a part of Nail, because those are phases that actually have skips. Beating those DPS checks has not been hard in a very long time. Skipping the end part so you don't have to do like one mechanic again, like you don't have to do like the quotes from Nail at the end. Skipping the dive bombs in Nail is pretty considerable, but you have to be able to do all of the next phase. You don't have to worry about the DPS check, but you have to be able to mechanically do all of the next phase. You have to be able to mechanically do Grand Octet and the ad phase, which you can get through a lot quicker. And if you make a mistake, is more recoverable. But for the most part, you still need to fundamentally understand it. And then Golden is still a matter of the MIT check, making sure everyone knows the order of things and dodging the X's. But otherwise, yeah, the DPS check there is far worse. I mean, obviously, with over 100 deaths and still being able to clear UCOB with Death Cob groups, it says a lot. Uwu, honestly, it is a problem because you have to force yourself to get LB3. You have to delay the fight to get LB3s. Like, I've seen people not have LB3 by the time they get to the intermission, and I've seen people who don't have LB3 by the time they get to Ultima in the final phase. That's a problem. They need to look at that because it means the job's performance is actually affecting the ability to beat the fight, which without having to do something dumb like deliberately eat an AoE or just stop attacking the boss to let LB generate naturally. Like, that's stupid. That's I consider that broken in a different way than I think you mean, but actually like unintentionally not working. I think T, the same thing can happen as well with the LB3 if you're like really, really juicing. But T is for the most part okay. The average group doesn't skip a whole lot, and you still have to be able to do wormhole no matter what. So that's really the most important thing. DSR, I think DSR and top have survived largely okay. Maybe that'll be worse later, but it's really Uwu that's actually broken and UCOB that's just kind of lost its prestige. So much so to the point where I actually recommend people start with T instead of UCOB. Like, yeah, do UCOB for the knowledge, for the experience, but I think T is like the go-to, like, I don't want to do Uwu. What should I do instead? I think the answer is T. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, Happy. First time asking questions. Have an SO bonus Pog. So in 2025 Magic the Gathering, they will release the Final Fantasy crossover set. Yes. They printed the One Ring card. Is Wizard of the Coast, are they going to do the same thing for the Final Fantasy set? I don't think they do a One Ring equivalent for the Final Fantasy set. I pondered this for a while. I do actually want to do pack openings. I don't play Magic the Gathering, and I don't play the Final Fantasy TCG. But this is kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of a legendary thing that I want to participate in. So I probably am going to do a bunch of pack openings for this set, make like a binder out of them. And I might even do like giveaways of the cards that I get in it for people who might be interested from a collector's standpoint. I'd also like to maybe keep an unopened pack. But I think about that. I think like an unopened pack or like several unopened packs of this. And I think to myself, like, I'm going to want to open it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have the willpower not to open it. So I know, but I don't think they'll do a one-of-a-kind card. I don't think that makes sense. I think it made sense for the One Ring. I don't think there's any way you can make it. Like, it's like, what, black materia? No, I don't think they do that. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi, Haps. Hi. I hope everything is doing better for you, and I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you. I don't necessarily have a question, but more need a second opinion from someone who does high-end raids. I joined a Savage Static 2 weeks ago to try and finish the tier with, primarily as PF is screwing me over loot and prog-wise. I've gotten close to clearing M4S as a static, however, I have an issue with our dancer. I'm not sure how to bring it up. They are messing up so much of their rotation and burst window, it's costing us valuable damage, tech step, missing steps, and getting no buffs in the end. That's bad. That's really bad. I've done that by accident, like twice ever. And I think one of them was actually in the last couple months. So that's, yeah. Found this through analysis, and I just don't know how to bring it up. Like, should I let them know they're messing up the rotation big time, or do I just leave it? If I'm in a static with somebody and something like that is happening consistently, I bring it up. You maybe try to get through M4, because M4 is so lenient rotation-wise, you just really need to know how to do the mechanics. Like, there should not be a we can't beat the DPS check problem in M4. If there is, the dancer is not the reason. It is a collective problem across multiple people. They may be the easiest to point to. They may be the most recognizable one making the mistakes. But if the enrage with no deaths, no gameplay mistakes, or very few of them is a frequent problem, that is more than just the dancer. That is an all-around problem. For this, though, if I'm going to be in a static with someone, I am going to bring this up. And when I've had, like, bad performances, I've had my raid members bring it up. I remember at the start of top, I was so focused on doing the call outs for the first phase that I remember I just had like really like I had a lot of like consistent mistakes in a lot of really little ways. And I had a raid member bring it up to me. I was like, yeah, I know, dude. It's just as I've been getting used to this while I've been focusing on trying to get everybody to like understand. I like have barely been trying. Like give it another day or two when everyone's comfortable and I don't need to put like that was a personal shortcoming and they brought it to my attention. And of course, over time, I made sure it was remedied, you know, over the next day or so, as there was no longer issues, I made sure that it was fixed. And anyone who is looking to play on the high-end content should be open to that in some capacity. So I'd say bring it up, but see if you can maybe get M4S done first. If it seems like it won't happen, or you're running into the issue of Enrage actually being a concern, which should not happen at this point with M4S. It shouldn't happen ever, realistically. Then you have to bring it up at that point, like before clearing. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Heya and a hello for the road. Taking it, putting it in my back pocket. I'm a fairly new Ultimate Raider, cleared M4S 3 weeks ago, planning to do Fruit in PF. Do you have any tips on dealing with brain rot of on-content prog? It's literally to just focus on what you need to do. Do nothing but focus on what the correct thing for you to do is. Because here's what will happen. If you focus on what you need to do, sooner or later you find 7 other people that know what to do. Or a static is looking for like one fill. They're like, oh, looking for fill on this prog, and you join it. And then they're like, oh, this is working. And then you like see, oh, you know, as long as everyone's getting along, everyone's performing well, we're progging, you know, do you want me to fill in for you again? And now all of a sudden you've got this like pseudo static that maybe you stick with past that, maybe you don't. All you can do is focus on making sure you know how to do the fight. You know how to play your job. You can't worry about anything else. It's going to be shit. All right. It's going to be funny. Try to have a laugh, but it's going to be shit. So all I can do is wish you the best of luck and just keep your head in the game. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, Haps. Hi, actually are still quite a few questions here. I've never asked a question before, and I watch Mondays with Mr. Happy on my work drive almost weekly since I saw your Ninja Guide way back when. Well, thank you. It's based on dumb, but I am the only one who wishes for a smarter chocobo AI in the overworld. No, you're definitely not the only one. There are fundamental flaws with the healing AI in particular, and I think they could do to improve how the chocobo recognizes skills. Like, it'd be nice if, for example, the stun skill, the chocobo only tried to do it if an enemy was in the middle of trying to use an ability. That'd be great instead of just using it whenever it's off cooldown, you know? With healing, it should look at is a one party member below, like way below health. Like it should be like the chocobo. If player HP percentage is lower than chocobo HP percentage, prioritize single target cure. If chocobo is lower than party percent, I guess then with the chocobo being lower, that still doesn't technically work. But like there needs to be like a plus or minus like 20% range. Like if both of their HPs are around the same amount, that then it does the AoE heal. Because what ends up happening is if both you and your chocobo are missing health, it pretty much always does medica. And that can actually be a problem in a lot of scenarios. So yes, no, you are far from the only person who wants this. I'm not crazy about it, but I would like to see them take the initiative and do it at some point. All right, so you know I always say when a question is at the bottom, I think it's been downvoted a bunch. This one's second from the bottom, so I'm worried. Hashtag plenty of hugs for Mr. Happy. Well, they're a nice person at least, so I'll take it even if it is downvoted. Hi and plenty of hugs. Thank you and hugs to you back, I guess. I have a suggestion for a healer control. That's why. Maybe it's because it's a suggestion. I mean, obviously you want my take on it, right? Like that's probably why people know I'm not big on that, but I'm already reading it, so let's see. What if you press a GCD or off global heal, Astrocard, Dark Shield, and it will send you to a special crossbar that has buttons from numbers 1 through 8? I think that takes too long. I mean, I know what you're thinking. You're like, oh, is that faster or slower than actually targeting a player and scrolling through? Black Mage number 7 on party stays in bad mechanic for ley lines. White Mage presses rescue, special cross hotbar. You know, I guess I couldn't say no to this because it is about the same amount of inputs and effort as it is to either go through the party list or just to manually target somebody by pressing left or right. But that being said, I feel like adding another input might... Yeah, I mean, I guess I have no really good counterpoints to it. It sounds out loud like it's way too many back-to-back inputs, but it's not really that different from the same number of back-to-back inputs that you actually have to do anyway. So, I mean, yeah, sure. If it's something that you would find useful, that's the thing. Even if I wouldn't find it useful, it doesn't matter because I don't play controller. If somebody else would find that same idea useful, then it becomes a good idea. You know what I mean? So, or at least it becomes something of value to add to the game. The more people who would actually want a system like that, you could, yeah. I mean, what else can I say other than, yeah, you could do that. Sure. Why not? People already make like macros for like skills and then put multiple of them on the bar so that like, oh, I want to rescue 7. I have rescue 7 on my bar. Or like, oh, I want to give the off tank Blackest Night. I have like just the second party member and I put tanks at the top. Like you already see stuff like that. So it's kind of just that in disguise without actually using the initial hotbar real estate. I have no counterpoints. So that means, yeah, sure, why not? And I don't play controller, so my counterpoint, even if I had a counterpoint, who cares? I don't play controller, right? My opinion would become invalid regardless. Anyway, that was the last question, unless I missed one in all of the condolences. So thank you to everyone for asking a question. Thank you again for your condolences. Thank you to the sponsors on Patreon. Thank you to Magic Spoon for sponsoring the video. And if you have a question for next week, be sure to put it in the comment section of the video below. I am feeling exhausted right now, and so I'm going to go chill a little bit before I have raid tonight. I'll be having a bunch of just those low item level raids. So if you pop by stream, you can finally catch me not playing Metaphor, although I plan on playing Romancing Saga later this week, so there'll be that as well. So anyway, thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next weekly Q&A. Until then, I bid you adieu. Bye-bye.